Hello, everyone. I think we're live, so I'll be happy to chat with our users and potential investors about our startup, the social crypto platform Slate, and our company Casator Corporation. Some of our team members have gathered here. Marina, our Chief Operations Manager and Director, will be helping me. That's right, yes. Hello, Marina. Are you with us?
Hi, I'm here.
Great. So I think everyone who wanted to join the stream will connect as we go along. So I think we can get started.
All right, then let's begin. Hello, everyone. My name is Marina Rudenko. I'm the Chief Operations Officer at the Slate project. And today I'll be hosting this stream for you together with the project founder, Dmitry Ivanov. Let me remind you that the best questions and ideas you send through our Telegram bot will receive gifts. And today we'll talk about how Slate grew from an idea into a social network with 15,000 users. Why did we choose to open the company specifically in the United States? How we filed the CI form with the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, and launched crowdfunding on WeFunder. What are our plans for the future? And we'll also answer all your questions. Let's get started. Dmitry, let's mentally go back to the distant year of 2018 when you first had the idea to create your own social network. Why a social network specifically?
Oh, that was a long time ago. And it's interesting why a social network in particular, because once I came up with this new, so to speak, method not to subscribe to a person as a whole, like everywhere else, but to certain, let's say, early personalities of a person that interest you in that individual. So if I am genuinely interested in the activity of fishing and you're absolutely not interested in that particular hobby, then you most certainly will not subscribe to that specific content or channel, and you won't receive that content from me. But if I write something about politics or economics and you're interested in that, you'll subscribe to it, and that would be great. So it's kind of like customizing your newsfeed on social media, which I think is very interesting and convenient because it improves the quality of content in your newsfeed. Yes, that was 2018, right at the very, very beginning. We had just met Yevhen, our chief technical officer, who is also our co-founder. We had just met. We had some abstract idea of how we were going to do all this, and we started moving in that direction. Literally, as they say, FFF, friends, family, fools. That is friends, family, and fools. This is an official investment term. These are people who help. At the very beginning, they started putting in a bit of money for us. So we started moving forward. That's how it all began. That was in 2018 to 2019. With the first, I remember, $400, we registered the company in the United States. Yes, and that was right at the very end of 2019. It was quite interesting.
You said that was the first $400 you opened the company specifically in the States. Why? Why specifically in the States and not another jurisdiction?
Well, it was actually pretty simple because the choice was quite straightforward. Ukraine, the States, or the EU. We didn't consider anything else at that time. Of course, Ukraine was ruled out almost immediately because I talked with other founders, read some literature, some articles about all this, and of course, it became clear right away that it had to be the States because the risks in Ukraine are just too high. I mean, the risks of dealing with our native tax authorities and so on. I have no issues with the tax authorities in the States, and they have none with us either. And that's great. Well, that's how it is. So, really, it's the standard for any startup, Delaware and corporation, the states. If you tell any professional qualified investor that your company is a Delaware C corporation, they have no further questions about it. Everything is clear. That's why we chose the states. And I absolutely don't regret.
5 years have passed. Tell me, why did it take more than 5 years from the moment you launched the company to the start of crowdfunding? What influenced this journey?
Yes, that's an interesting question. Actually, I'll reveal a little secret here. In 2019, we planned to launch on WeFund. So 5 years ago, right? So even more than that. But of course, we did some research on this topic, and it became clear that it was simply impossible to do for many reasons, right? Because the startup was at an absolutely early stage. It was incredibly difficult for us to attract an investment. Even just getting onto WeFunder was quite challenging. Technically, legally, you have to go through a serious process there. That's it. A few more points. So we were absolutely not ready for this. That became clear, and we shifted a bit in another direction. And we started crowdfunding with a token. So actually, well, okay, at the end of 2019, we launched our company, but that was just registering the company, and that's it. Around August, sorry, in March 2020, as I recall, Yevhen had already left his previous job and started dedicating his full attention to our project, our startup. And only from that moment did we start to see any real progress. I'll just remind you that at that time, the team consisted of about 2.5 to 3.5 people. That was the very beginning. So we started in 2021, registered, launched our token, and began crowdfunding, raising money, and moving forward with the token fundraising. So basically, it was a very difficult path, as difficult as it could possibly be. I've said many times that if I had known it would be this hard, I would have just kept working on my previous business and would have felt great. But we had already started this thing. I'm not the kind of person who stops halfway. And I could clearly see even from the very beginning that we were moving in the right direction. So we kept moving forward, raising more and more funds each year, expanding the team, and improving the product. There were a lot of problems along the way. I can say that I'm some kind of perfect CEO in a vacuum, or that we have an ideal, flawless team. No, we're Startup everything is complicated, but we're moving forward. Is another quite important point. Only now are we launching our equity crowdfunding. This means that someone, even from Ukraine, can invest in our company with small checks to 100, 500, or $1,000 without any problem. But when people start actively investing in our company, I, as the ultimate beneficiary and owner, and the person with total majority of voting power in our company, gradually begin to lose this voting power, meaning I start to lose control over my own company. So for me, those few years that we struggled a bit, it was tough, but we raised funds, and I didn't lose a single % of control in my company. That's very important to me because I have my own vision of what and how we want to achieve things. I'm trying to realize this vision, and I will make it happen. Well, honestly, it was a wonderful journey. It was very interesting. We approached WeFunder for the second time, much better prepared. That's why I believe that this limit of $1 or $2 million that we currently have on WeFunder will raise that money in a few months, and we'll be able to prepare for the actual launch of the digital hryvnia in Ukraine. This is very important. The company has reached the WeFunder stage. Almost all investors are familiar with the US Securities and Exchange Commission. Well, unfortunately, not everyone understands just how complex the process of interacting with them is. Tell us a bit more about submitting the Form C. Why was this important? What were the challenges? Maybe it was easy. Thank you for the question. No, it wasn't easy. Who would know better than you? But let's talk a bit about how it all works behind the scenes. First of all, the US Securities and Exchange Commission, well, not all of our people, but of course all investors know what it is and that it's serious. But not all of our viewers may know what that is. So it's an official body in the United States of America, a very serious one that looks after investors' rights, especially and first and foremost when it comes to investors from the United States, of course. This is the very same commission that gave Telegram and Bureau personally a hard time. If anyone remembers, you probably recall a few years ago that whole Sagatis Commission, the US Securities and Exchange Commission, shut it down, and then later as well. So this is a very serious official body. Regarding the SEC form, we are required to report and submit our filings to this commission. This form is completely public. You can go right now to the website of the Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States, search for our company there, and you will find it. And there you will find this SEC form, probably several dozen pages of information about our company. So you go to the tech.gov website and look for Casata Corporation there. You will find it very quickly. So the SEC form is also one of the steps on our path toward accountability, transparency, clarity, predictability, and reducing risks for our potential investors. For example, if we talk about just crypto, I've been criticized many times by Ukrainian crypto experts because I said that 95% of crypto projects in the world are scams right from the design stage. From the very beginning, it's conceived as a scam to rip everyone off, take the money, and disappear somewhere behind the scenes. And well, that's absolutely not what we're interested in. We're interested in building a serious, massive corporation. We have corresponding plans and in fact a vision of how we will fit into the near future where there is a full-scale financial crisis, where the Great Depression will seem trivial and almost cheerful by comparison, where there is hyperinflation, where wars are raging all over the world. So we are preparing for this, and in particular, we are preparing for the new financial system that is coming soon. And it will be based on central bank digital currencies, CBDC, central bank digital currency, starting with Ukrainian digital hryvnia. And then after that, the digital euro. These are not my words. These are the words of Christine Lagarde. For example, the digital euro. And that it will soon be launched as part of a pilot open project. Just like the digital hryvnia by the end of 2025, according to someone from the National Bank of Ukraine. Finance. That's how things stand. I got a bit sidetracked. So let's move on to the next questions. With your permission, before we continue our conversation about WeFunder, I want to ask you, what would you advise people who are just planning to start their own startup, and what first steps really matter? And maybe what would you do differently if you could go back to 2018? Well, first of all, first of all, you need to keep this saying in mind. Someone else said it, and Elon Musk repeated it, that building a startup is like standing at the edge of an abyss chewing glass. That's pretty much what it's like. When I started, all of this, so to speak, just sounded like empty words. And then it hit me that this is absolutely true. It's very difficult. It's a constant struggle. First of all with yourself, because you constantly have to force yourself to do things you've never done before. For example, I'll speak about myself. I've always been the kind of person who could do almost anything with my own hands. If I didn't know something, I would learn it instantly. When I needed to program some industrial controllers, I learned how to do it and did it. When I needed to tinker, excuse my Ukrainian, with something like Mastercam and digital CNC programming and all that machinery, I did it. 3D modeling, I did that too. Okay, starting a sole proprietorship, trading equipment all over the world to Japan, the US, the UK, South Korea. Okay, I did that too. Long time ago, I was one of the first sole proprietors who not only traded something for export, but actually produced it from scratch all the way to the sale and shipping. So for me, for example, the challenge was learning how to build a team and manage it somehow. All these people who used to be just 3 and now they're almost 30. You see what I mean? Learning to delegate, to trust, to control, to communicate with all these people was very difficult for me because I'm an introvert. In general, I don't really like discussing things with people, managing or communicating with so many at once. Because now every morning I have a huge number of calls with the team, then some breakfast meeting, then more calls, then I have to prepare something for tomorrow, and it's just a constant overload. So, what can I recommend if you really want to get into this? Well, first of all, you should carefully consider if you are okay with having that startup roller coaster. When in the morning how should I put it? We're all doomed, right? And in the evening, you're like, we're gonna crush everyone, no one can stop us. Sorry, I can't translate this into Ukrainian. So if you're ready for that, the first and most important thing is co-found. You'll never accomplish anything on your own. Well, you can just quickly mess it up and that'll be the end of it. You need co-founders who will push this boulder forward with you until it finally starts rolling downhill. You have to be ready for rejection because investors will turn you down. They won't trust you. They'll say to you, who are you anyway? We also have a huge cohort of Ukrainian investors who in reality are not venture investors at all. Seriously. Like, let's go check out your 3-room apartment in Darmitsia in the living room and so on. Or like give us 51% of the company for peanuts for their money. So there will always be a ton of this. You constantly have to deal with it persuading, negotiating, and keeping investors in the loop. Honestly, I'm not that great at it myself. By the way, I'm not some perfect CEO, but it's all doable. So if you actually have founders, co-founders, I mean, if you have some cohort of potential FFF investors who can give you a bit of money to build an MVP, a minimum viable product, then sure, you can go ahead and do it. But right away, you need to pay very close attention to the entire legal side of this whole process, because that will be extremely important later on. If you don't have this later on, it will be a huge problem. Well, those are the fundamental and most essential recommendations I can genuinely give to absolutely anyone who wants to try their hand at effectively reviving glass surfaces.
I think after hearing these recommendations, some listeners have decided they want to start a startup, while others definitely have decided they'd rather just remain investors in other people's startups. So let's get back to WeFounder. A question from our users that has been coming up frequently in our community chats over the past day. Why is WeFunder asking for investment confirmation again? What does an investor need to do, and how should they do it correctly?
It's actually very simple. WeFunder is, and in general, the topic of equity investments in the shares of some American startups in the United States, among this area, is highly regulated, and in the States, huge amount of attention is paid to protecting investors, their rights, and so on. That's why all these confirmations are needed, all this compliance, all this company transparency. Even if it's a startup, it's still a company, and there must be transparency so that investors can understand what's really going on. What are the risks? And when will we be able to exit if we can at all? And what possible return on investment is there? I mean, the return on investment with what potential multiplier, and who actually works at this company? Who are these people, and which country are they from? And there are countless questions that are revealed through the submission of documents to the US Securities Commission. So actually, yes, why do you need to go and confirm your investment, right? Because we recently, literally the day before yesterday or so, received the results of a certified accountant's audit also. That's the accountant, as I understand. So we received our financials. It's a 14-page document entirely about our financial affairs with a huge amount of information. And the conclusion, in fact, of this accountant, so this is an important piece of information. Therefore, by law, the fund is obliged, how do you say it in Ukrainian, to inform potential investors that something significant has changed. Go and check. If everything is okay, confirm that you really want to invest in our company. So everything is as regulated and slow as possible. But honestly, I think that's the right approach, because I've been watching the crypto market for many years and it doesn't satisfy me. I wouldn't put my money there unless I were some kind of gambler or a professional, rock-solid investor with nerves of steel and a clear understanding of the risks and how to mitigate them. If we're talking about unqualified, non-qualified investors, then I don't recommend crypto to anyone at all. It's better to invest in stocks, maybe in some interesting startups. AI is trending right now, but what we're doing is what's going to come after AI. It will be a new financial system based on CBDC. And we've been preparing for this for quite a while already. We are the only social network in the democratic world that is already ready to launch digital money right now. That's how cool we are.
New users can still join the crowdfunding and invest. And how can they do that? Tell us in a few words, please.
Yes, it's absolutely easy to do. Well, all right. Of course, there are a few things you need to register on Funder. You need to be able to invest a certain amount of money. By the way, if you want to invest more than $2,500, it will be more complicated, much more complicated than, say, 1,000 or two. You will have to provide documents confirming that you have some stable sources of income that you probably might have a significant amount of money in your account somewhere, right? Because this is about protecting yourself from some scammers who might be trying to swindle money from you. First, that is the Securities Commission, and in general, the entire investment process in the United States is structured in such a way that you don't end up without money after you've invested somewhere. But if it's something like $500, $2,500, that's doable. We have a support team that will help you do this, guide you through the entire process, step by step. And with this team, it will be much easier. So that's it. So follow our posts on social media. We have a special bot on Telegram that will help you go through the entire process, connect you to support, and then a real person will help guide you all the way. It's actually not that overly complicated, and it's certainly worth thoroughly going through if we're talking about our company and our startup.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to the most anticipated section. We're moving on to the questions and ideas from our community. There are a lot of them, Dimitro, so we can keep our answers brief. And let me remind our listeners that the authors of the best questions and ideas will receive gifts. We will determine the winners after the broadcast and announce them on our social media. Question. First question, will there be convenient asset management on Refunder?
Well, actually, as far as I know, something like that is already being planned. On Start Engine, there is already a platform where you can trade your share that you purchased after a year. There is a cooldown period there. So after this period, for example, on Start Engine, you can sell this safe agreement, I think, for a higher price, but that's just my opinion. So if everything works out for us and everything goes well, your share in our company will be worth more. Again, that's if everything goes well for us. As for how this works on Refunder, I don't recall there being a dedicated topic or feature for trading safes there at the moment. Probably it doesn't exist. But according to what Start Engine told us, where we actually plan to conduct our second fundraising round in a few months, they told us that the safes purchased on Refunder can be resold by investors on Start Engine. So that's not an issue. That's basically how it is.
How do you pitch startups, Dimitro?
Pitching startups, I've honestly never really liked doing it or found it to be something I particularly enjoyed. Honestly, I never really understood it. Like, how come people don't get what we're doing, why it's important, and why they'll be able to multiply their money if they invested $100 with us back in 2019. There were a few dozen people like that. So a few years later, they could sell those investments as token cents. We converted almost all of them into token cents, make at least 5 times their money if they sold at the all-time low, or 60 times if they sold at the all-time high, or even more if they didn't just sit around all those years but kept reinvesting. Well, that's how it is. You have to learn how to pitch. You need to practice pitching hundreds of times in front of a mirror. That's something I've never done even once. And honestly, it's bad that I haven't done it. It should roll off your tongue quickly, clearly, and concisely. I mean, you just need experience with this. And you need to practice this in front of a mirror, in front of your team, in front of strangers, so that it comes out instantly and is easy to understand.
The next question is indirectly related to chewing glass over the abyss, and it goes like this. If you sold Sl8, what would your next startup be?
Well, first of all, I'm not planning to sell Sl8. I'm planning to attract investment into it. That's right. Secondly, if I were to do something else, yes, of course, I would do it in the field of artificial intelligence. I have a few ideas in that area. But keep in mind, I'm not a techie, I'm not a programmer, I'm not some kind of DevOps specialist. So I only have high level ideas which need to be validated. and it's not at all certain that what I want to do is even possible. But we do have a few ideas. Not only do I have ideas, but so does our technical director on this topic. So I think everything we want to do in terms of AI, we'll end up doing in Sl8. And in fact, we are already moving in that direction. For example, the translation of posts and comments in Sl8, they are done with the help of artificial intelligence. Well, that's the answer.
The next question is very practical and very brief. When will the paid subscription be implemented?
A paid subscription is one of the must-have features, and I think it will be implemented in about a month and a half to 2 months, something like that. So right now, in about a week, we'll have the first version of the internal messenger, and then we'll focus as much as possible on content monetization, paywalls, subscriptions, and Sl8, and so on. So in the messenger, you'll be able to sell some content or products or services a bit later. This is one of the nearest tasks we need to accomplish in order to increase our own revenue. Sorry, I don't remember how to say that in Ukrainian. Well, something like that.
Thank you. How will the bonus reward system for investors from Funder work?
Well, first of all, we have several perks. These are, how to put it, goodies for investors. For example, you invest $1,000 or a bit more in our company. You receive a certain amount of SSLX tokens. You also get a special investor badge in Sl8 in virtual form. That is, it will be visible in your profile, in each of your posts, and so on. You also receive this badge in physical form as a kind of collectible badge made of silver in a plastic capsule. It's really well made in a gift box. That's it. And when we get to the actual bonuses, that will be after the current funding round is completed, when we close it and start processing the entire list of investors, sending out tokens, badges, and some other perks to everyone.
When will it be possible to remove unwanted people from the Sl8 feed?
Well, I think that's actually not such a serious feature. Right now, of course, we're focused on paid features, subscriptions, content monetization, and the messaging. But once we sort this out, I think in about 2.5 months, we'll get back to focusing on the core functionality of the social network as a social network. That means we'll be adding a lot of features that are already common in other social networks. But for now, our main goal is to prepare as much as possible for the next rounds of funding. I mean, equity crowdfunding, that is raising money for further development, implementation, and scaling of our project. That's it. Well, and there are a few other points that are also worth paying attention to. But for now, I'm not ready to reveal all of them. In fact, we can't disclose all our trump cards at the moment, but getting ready for the digital hryvnia is a must-have, as well as increasing our revenue. I'm not sure, is that the right word in Ukrainian? Marina, Viruchka revenue, how is it?
It's correct.
It's correct, right? Well, great. Increasing our revenue is a very important indicator for any investor, especially if it's a venture or some fund that comes to us in a year. It's very important. Thank you.
Then, let us now reveal what the significant name Kasadar truly means to us.
I'm not entirely ready to provide a comprehensive answer to that particular question just yet. It truly means something significant to me. The Kasadar Corporation, if you pay close attention, the letter C in the English alphabet is, as you might recall, in the third position. This is a detail worth noting. So that's 3-3 Kasadar Corporation 3-3. That's it. Well, it might mean something to some people and nothing to others. Maybe I'll answer that later. Thank you.
All right. Our users and listeners are interested in the question of how. You plan to attract a non-crypto audience if the current UX is still quite basic and doesn't provide all the blend functionality.
I agree, the current UX, especially the design, well, you could say basically doesn't exist. It's still in progress. The design itself is almost ready, but it still needs to be implemented on the front end and applied better. So, how do we want to attract a Web2 audience? Actually, it's pretty simple. There are a lot of influencers who get some money from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, but honestly, it's a very small amount. I'm absolutely certain that all these influencers who have audiences of 5,500,000 users or even 5 million will realize a bit later that with us, they can earn significantly more money by an order of magnitude. What will they do? They'll come on board and start promoting us on all other social networks and bringing their audience to us. It's a very simple scheme. They earn money, we get a commission from that money, and we gain a new audience, a huge one actually. This way, we'll simply lure them all in. Because with us, earning money will be much easier and more profitable than anywhere else on any other social network. That's the plan.
What is needed for real growth of the project's assets?
Well, that's an interesting question. What do we mean by the project's assets? For me, of course, it's our capitalization of our American company. For me, and for any investor who now comes to be funders and invests $1,000 in our company, our capitalization is the most important asset, so to speak. So we will do everything to make our capitalization grow as quickly and as much as possible. I am interested in this, as are all our co-founders, our employees, and of course all our token holders and shareholders. That is, even if we reach the capitalization of our rather small competitor, which is Fanbase. Fanbase is an American company, it's a social network. And right now their capitalization is $160 million. In my opinion, this is a huge capitalization if we take into account the fact that Fanbase does not have any financial system, is not planned, and will not have one, because it is too difficult for them. Here, their revenue for the previous year is about 6 times or less than ours. Well, that's just unnecessary. But if we reach that level of capitalization, and I think it's absolutely possible to do so even within a year, so those who invest $1,000 now will accordingly get about $7,000 in a year. Well, that's 5,000 in profit, so a total of 7. That's just as an example. If, say, in 5 years, we reach the capitalization of Twitter X by Elon Musk, that would be 1,000 times growth, meaning 1,000 would turn into 1,000,000. Of course, that will be difficult. It's very risky. I'm not guaranteeing that we'll reach that capitalization in 5 years. In fact, it could even be more because things aren't going so well for the big social networks, honestly. For example, let me just remind you that Twitter was bought on credit. And Facebook, or rather Zuckerberg's Meta, which once had $45 billion in cash just lying around in their accounts, and they didn't know what to do with it. Meta has already successfully raised approximately $18 billion in corporate bonds. That is, they have effectively borrowed a significant amount of money, and as a result, they are now in considerable debt. So, a little later, in about 2 years, when the financial crisis is in full swing, they're going to have huge problems. And that's our chance to take their place, and we will make the most of it. Thank you.
Dimitro, how does crypto interact with development social network?
Uh, well, first of all, our token Starflux is basically like in our social network. So right now, people can buy this token. This like is the right to give someone a like or to receive a like yourself. You can buy these likes, I would say, in bulk and very cheaply while we're still small. And you can sell them, say, in a few years when we become big and have a huge audience. Because let me remind you, the number in Starflux is limited to 10 billion tokens, and there can't physically be any more than that. So when a wallet is issued, it is locked forever and cannot be unlocked. This isn't like the situation where, for example, the hryvnia can be printed in the billions every year, which causes its value to constantly decrease. In other words, that's the process of inflation. Right now, the token's price has dropped significantly. That's true. For a simple reason, right now, we need a lot of funds for development, for the legal side, for scaling tests, for testing the expansion of our audience. For example, a few months ago, we conducted a rather large test, growing from 80,000 users to 500,000 in about a month to month and a half. It was a huge load on our infrastructure, but everything held up. We tested it, we saw the results, everything works perfectly. And now we know that even if we get a few million users in a week, we can easily handle it and everything will be great. But all of this costs money. A simple basic audit alone costs, say, $5,000, for example. Legal work, for instance, starts at around $200 per hour if it's a truly professional lawyer, not just anyone. So all of this costs money. We have to get that money from somewhere. So we have fundraising with the token, and we simply sell large volumes of tokens on the market, which causes the token price to drop you. Well, that's actually how it was. It had already dropped in price to its current levels about a year and a half ago, and then quite remarkably, it went up tenfold. Well, a bit later, when we fully switch to the equity fundraising model, we will stop selling Starflux altogether. And as a result, the pressure on its price will decrease significantly and the price will go up. That's it, that's all. So that's the answer. Thank you.
That's interesting financial question. Will these BDCs replace regular hryvnias?
I don't think this will happen in our lifetime. These are very slow tectonic processes. So, no. I believe, first of all, my personal opinion is that forms of money should compete with each other. Fiat, I mean, just paper money, paper hryvnias, they are necessary. They should circulate alongside, say, bank transfers from card to card or services like PayPal or Western Union. All of these should work simultaneously. Money should compete. One form of money should compete with another form of money. That would be the ideal ecosystem when people have the right to choose what they want to use. If they see that the digital hryvnia doesn't suit them, they should be able not to use it and instead use regular paper money or bank payments. Of course, I see that preparations are underway for the introduction of the digital hryvnia. I don't really agree with these methods because I see that they're narrowing the room for maneuver. For example, if you transfer money to someone's card or someone transfers money to you, I see that with crypto in Ukraine, on the one hand, they're passing some laws, but on the other hand, they're shutting down exchanges. Something else like that is happening. I don't like it. I'm in favor of people having the freedom to use whatever form of money they prefer. That's how it is. But I'm 1,000% sure that for another 10 or 20 years, there won't be a situation where everyone is forced into the digital hryvnia, because frankly, that would spark a revolt. We're in Ukraine, right? We have a strong history of dealing with various forms of authoritarianism, dictatorship, and so on. I don't think anything like that will happen in Ukraine.
Now we're going to make a sharp transition from a global topic to a purely practical one. How do you change the secret key for a wallet?
Oh, it's better to ask support about that, honestly, because I'm not a techie. And in general, what I really recommend is not to touch the secret key at all unless you're a real pro in crypto and all that, because we've already had cases where people took their secret key and put it somewhere in a Google Doc, and you absolutely shouldn't do that. You see, this is this is the secret key. It's the key to your wallet. Anyone who hacks in or accesses that Google Doc and finds it, they just take that key and go straight to your wallet. Not even in Slate, but in any Stellar client, distributor, ledger, they can just withdraw all the funds from your wallet. So it's better not to touch it at all. If you're really a pro, if you understand the risks, then okay, you know the risks. If someone steals that key and uses it to take your money, it's gone, and there's no way to get it back. That's crypto. That's how it works. So, but if you have any additional questions, it's better to go to support. They'll give you a more specific answer there.
Dimitro, why should someone hold SSLX and what is its value?
Well, again, for now, we're a very small startup with a very small audience. Just understand when the audience is 100 times bigger, say 50 million people, there are several social networks like that. Well, I even forgot what they're called. Some have 20 million, some 30, 10 there are many of them. It's not really that big of a problem. But when there are huge numbers of people, the demand for this token will naturally increase. Simply put, because people need something to like with, right? But all of this is actually almost irrelevant compared to what will happen when we launch our launchpad. A launchpad is, as a startup, as a company, as a project, we went through a very tough fundraising journey, meaning raising and attracting funds for the further development of our project. So we meticulously built a truly comprehensive and expensive marketing system that significantly helped us attract these essential funds in a somewhat gamified and engaging way, incorporating all sorts of distinct rounds, exciting events, progressive stages, lucrative sales, exclusive drops, beneficial staking opportunities, valuable vouchers, and even dedicated support vouchers, whatever it precisely took to successfully bring in the necessary funds. We already have it. And we want to offer this comprehensive system as a complete turnkey solution to other businesses, vibrant communities, and truly talented individuals so that they can effectively tokenize their entire business, their community initiatives, or even themselves. For example, let's say there's a budding Ukrainian singer sitting somewhere, maybe in Zaitomir. He doesn't have any money, but all his friends tell him, dude, you have an amazing voice. Maybe you should do something with it. You sing really well at our get togethers, but maybe you should go to Kiev or something, try out for some auditions. Come on, you need to do something about it. And he says, well, I don't have any money. What can I do? But what if he has the opportunity, for example, to raise some funds from his own initial audience, maybe just a few $1,000s, and then he could actually go to Kiev, take some tests, get some voice training, take some courses, and something could come out of this token's value would increase. Actually, launchpads are a huge topic. I absolutely can't talk about this right now. But what I will say is that when we launch it, we will provide our entire marketing system turnkey and free of charge. But we will have 10% of the capitalization of each token, and this 10% will go into our mining app, Gold Eagle. Of course, that's another topic for discussion. Well, can't talk about it here. But everything will be arranged in a way that makes it interesting for people, really interesting. And so that they will need to buy a certain amount of the old set, for example, to launch their own top, or for instance, to mine a lot of Stardust, Gold Eagle. There are options. That is, we have a strategic vision of how we want to do all this. It will be a huge ecosystem. It will especially grow after the end of 2025 when the digital hryvnia is launched, because that will be a huge boost for us. Maybe some people don't realize it yet, but the digital hryvnia will be launched on the Stellar distributed ledger. That's the technology on which our entire financial system is built. It's the very same technology. When the digital hryvnia is launched to the public, not just on a testnet, but actually to the public, it appears in the wallets of every one of our users within a few days, and they can start using it. They can exchange USDC for digital hryvnia or vice versa, transfer it between users and so on. So this will be a huge boost for us. And actually, there's only about half a year left until this happens, given. In other words, we've already come a long way, about 6 years. Now we just have to wait another 6 months, and we'll be heading for Mars. We won't even need to stop at the moon. I mean, the number of users, our capitalization, all of that, and of course, the price of star slacks as well. So right now is the perfect time if you want to invest. You have an incredible opportunity to do so with the lowest possible risks, because those who invested 6 years ago were taking the biggest risks since we had nothing back then. And now, what do we have? We have a company in the US, completely transparent, no issues with the tax authorities or any other agencies. Everything is transparent with us. We are submitting documents to the Securities Commission, and the company is active on WeFunder. We have a subsidiary, daughter company in the European Union with a virtual asset service provider license, the VASP license. This license allows us to operate in the European Union in the crypto asset market and manage wallets, issue tokens, and so on. Our team isn't just 3 people, it's 30, right? For example, back in 2023, our revenue was $450,000 a year. Last year, in 2024, it was $910,000. So that's a twofold increase. And this year, we've already made $900,000 in just half a year. So we'll do at least another twofold increase. In other words, we have the numbers, we have the team, we have a company without any problem. We have a future. We are the only democratic social network in the world. China, don't take China into account. China is a completely separate case. With their digital yuan, we are the only social network in the world that is currently ready right now to implement CBDC. As soon as the digital hryvnia is launched, we will have it. As soon as the digital euro is launched, if it's on Stellar, we'll have it instant. If it's on some other distributed ledger, that's possible too. Not all digital currencies will be launched only on Stellar, after all. So whether it's XRP Ledger or Hyperledger, we'll integrate all of that into Sl8. And in fact, any digital currency of the democratic world will be in Sl8, because at some point we will connect all the money in the world with all the people in the world. That's our goal. That's our goal, and we actually making great progress toward it. Thank you.
We've reached the section of very short questions for very short answers. Who are Sl8's competitors?
There are a few, actually, there are many of them. There used to be a lot. We all probably remember NIMSIS. We remember Ukrainians and a few Ukrainian social networks, some craft social networks. Well, all of them have ended their work. Currently, one of our comparable competitors is Fanbase, which I've already mentioned, just Google Fanbase. They have a huge page on Start Engine, another equity crowdfunding platform similar to WeFunder, just different and bigger. They are raising funds there. Of course, a little bit later, we will consider Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as our direct competitors. Well, I'm not sure about TikTok, but when it gets banned in the United States, and that they will come, of course, will polish up some features and, well, naturally will be their competitors. We're not some regional social net. We are not a Ukrainian social net. That's important. We are a Ukrainian startup. All the founders are Ukrainian. The whole team is Ukrainian. Most of the token holders are Ukrainian. All the shareholders are Ukrainian, but we don't consider ourselves a Ukrainian social network. We are a global network with Ukrainian roots. That's it. Well, Fanbase is the closest competitor.
What changes are planned for wallet security?
That's an interesting question. Two-factor authentication, of course. A PIN code personally. I'm really looking forward to that. As for the wallet's private key, that's a very controversial issue. Maybe. Access to the wallet's private key will be carefully and deliberately hidden behind one of the premium subscription plans, simply so that people truly treat it with the utmost seriousness, well, frankly, because I think many individuals genuinely don't fully realize just how incredibly serious and potentially catastrophic it is when, they carelessly keep this highly sensitive and critically important private key somewhere in their readily accessible Gmail account, which is often not as secure as they might assume. You just can't do that. Sorry, somewhere in Google Docs. Number. You can't do that in a text file, in any text files on your computer either. There are a few things that really need to be improved to make the wallet more secure. This is a very important issue, and we will address it as soon as possible.
When will it be possible to change the email during registration?
That's not certain at all. I don't know. I don't know. We actually have a specially trained person. I'm talking about our technical director, who could give a more specific answer on this topic. I think it will be possible, but of course, you'll have to confirm in several ways that you are indeed the owner of this account. Of course, if you've completed KYC in Sl8 and received the blue check mark, it will probably be easier. So you go through KYC again, no questions about that. Okay, you can change your email. Thank you.
Will transaction histories be available in the wallet?
Well, basically, just yesterday, a new version of the wallet was released in Sl8, and it's already there. So right now, just go update Sl8, the app, log in there, and you'll find the transaction history. Of course, again, it doesn't look perfect yet and doesn't work exactly perfect. But, well, once we finish refining the design, it's going to look really cool and be very pleasant to use. Unfortunately, for now, design isn't a top priority there. There are a lot of other things we need to refine first, but we'll get to it.
How does Sl8 strike a balance between decentralization and security?
That's a very interesting question, and it's actually a huge topic. First, right now, I would like to especially note Note, how do you say it in Ukrainian? Note.
To indicate.
To note, great. It is especially worth noting that we are currently not decentralized as a social network, but our financial system, it is based on the stellar distributed ledger. That's great. A bit later, I believe, we will have to move towards a decentralized network, similar to how it's done in Blue Sky or Mastodon. These are several such distributed networks. Maybe it's almost there, about 95%, but a bit later, maybe in a year or two, we might also have to go open source. But here it's very important with some, I mean, we will go open source,